Today, I'm going to go over 6 basic steps for planning your garden, including how to assess your space, define your goals, plan your layout, consider companion planting, and creating a schedule. So stick around and I will show you what has worked for me for several years now, and let me help you get started on your gardening journey. Well, believe it or not, it is that time of year again. Yes, in January, you are going to be starting to think about what you're going to plant in the spring and summer, no matter where you live. I know looking outside right now, it might seem a little difficult to conceive that you really should start already planning your spring and summer garden, but trust me, you need to. So let me show you how I geek out on my seed planning for the season. And yes, I do have a seed problem. If this is your first year beginning to garden, this is definitely going to be your most important step. Going outside and seeing where you're going to put your garden. You're going to have to be aware of where the sun is, how much sun that your space is going to be getting, if there's anything that's going to be shading it at any point. Like I have a tree that does shade part of my garden, so I had to work around that. And this is also the part where you're going to decide what type of garden you're going to have. Like I have raised bed, or you can have in-ground bed. It's all going to depend on when you're assessing the space that you want to put your garden in. Take your time here. Once you have assessed your space and decided on what type of garden you're going to have, whether it's going to be a raised bed garden or an in-ground garden or a vertical garden or just pots, whatever kind of garden it's going to be, you're then going to have to lay it out. And this is my best way that I've ever found. I've tried the online programs and they just weren't customizable enough to me. And obviously I'm doing this very quickly. You can see the children are running around me. So this is not by any means an art project, but here I'm also marking where my trellises are. And then I will be marking north, south, east, west. And then that way I can kind of have an idea of where the sun's going to be hitting those trellises and what I should have on either side of them. So as you are sketching out a rough design of your garden, you're going to keep in mind that the plants have different growth patterns, spacing requirements, and their compatibility with each other. If you don't know any of that yet, don't worry. Just draw this to the best of your ability. We will get to the rest of that later. I'm currently putting in all my perennial plants like my asparagus, my strawberries. I will be putting in the artichokes, etc. Stuff like that is what I'm writing down that I have to work around, and now I'm writing the measurements of each bed. Now let's start with defining some goals. What do you want to grow in your garden? Are you going to want vegetables, flowers, or maybe a combination of both? I do personally believe that you should have both, but make a list of what your preferred plants are going to be. And if there are going to be any specific requirements, like if you're going to have a really hot, sunny garden, then you're going to have plants that can tolerate that. Or if you have a lot of shade, you're going to have plants that are going to thrive in the shade, stuff that you're going to need to consider. If you're going to be growing vegetables, you are going to want to plant what you will eat, not stuff that looks good that you think you may, by chance, maybe someday want to eat. I made that mistake in my first garden, and so much of my produce went to waste. It was really sad. I didn't even know how to cook half of what I was growing. Yes, I was successful. I had a green thumb, but when it all goes to waste, it does kind of feel like a failure in a way. So that is my biggest tip. Just make sure that what you are growing is something that you will utilize, something you will eat, something that you can share, something that you will be able to preserve or consume in the season. Just try and not to overdo it, which is not something that I take to heart myself, which I keep trying every year, but I seem to always go overboard, and we'll see how I do this year. So for this year, my goal is to preserve a year's worth of food for my family, as it always is. I just try to keep ramping up my capabilities, expanding the garden, changing things around, planting the correct amount of plants for each food that I want to put up and away for the family. Last year I did 40 something tomato plants, and that was a little too much, let's be honest. So this year my goal is around 12. So let me know in the comments what your goal is for your garden this year and how you think that you can obtain that goal. So did you know that certain plants can benefit from being planted together? Some can also be detrimental if you plant them incorrectly. So make sure to research which plants you're wanting to grow and if they will work well together and create a symbiotic relationship. Some of the plants that you can plant together would be things that have likeness for the soil pH, so acidic versus alkaline. Generally, berries like strawberries, blueberries, stuff like that, they like to be in more acidic soil, so those can go together fairly well. However, putting something that likes alkaline soil would not create a symbiotic relationship in that circumstance. What I tend to do is I tend to intersperse rooted vegetables with the other kinds of vegetables, plant-like vegetables, for example. So putting onions and garlic interspersed with herbs and other things that grow upwards, for the lack of scientific terms, those seem to work pretty well together as long as their soil requirements are similar. However, you can't do that with potatoes because they grow both ways. If you've ever seen a potato plant, they get quite large. But really my all-time favorite is to intersperse flowers throughout because it does call in the pollinators. It benefits the garden in that aspect. And then also if you're doing herbs, I plant those all over. So here I am just writing out everything. Some of the stuff, like I said, I've already had planted, like my asparagus, the strawberry plants. I planted garlic in the fall. So I'm just kind of writing all of that down. And then in one of the beds, my peppers do really well in because it gets so much sunlight. So I'm just writing down the basics, and then I will be adding in all the other plants, maybe stuff I haven't done before or stuff that I'm wanting to move around based on the issues or productivity that I had last year. For example, I am keeping the peppers, like I said, in the same spot, and I'm majorly cutting down on the tomatoes, and I'm actually going to plant potatoes again this year. I did not plant them last year. So stuff like that. This section will depend upon what zone you are living in because that will determine your last frost date, and that is where you're going to plan your seed starting schedule. You're going to look at the back of the pack of seeds and see how many weeks it takes to become a seedling and to be able to go outside. And from here is where you're going to count backwards. You can see at the top I have 12 weeks, 10 weeks, 8 weeks, and so forth. And those are the weeks that I'm going to count backwards from my first frost date, and that is when I'm going to know when I need to start my seeds indoors or even direct sow them outside. And this is my basic general calendar for that. I'm sure most have heard of chicken math. Well, this is seed math, and all of those bins right there on the table, yes, they are full of seeds. Those big box bins on the left are photo album boxes that you can get at like Michael's or any other craft store, and they're each individualized and filled with seeds of different varieties and different types. As you can see right here, I am going through my empty seed packs from last year trying to decide if I want to order some more for them or if I'm just going to throw them away and be done with them. One major advantage to starting seeds indoors is that you have a huge selection to choose from. Other than just going to the nursery and finding generic varieties, you can have seed catalogs, online catalogs, everything in the world under the sun to choose from. And as you can see here, I have taken full advantage of that fact. And no, I do not feel bad about it one bit. Just so you know, the sell-by date on the back is for when it was packaged. They have to do that by law. It is not an expiration date. So do not throw out your seeds because the year has passed or the date has passed. They are still fine If they are kept in optimum conditions, they will last for years and years and years. Germination rate may start to go down after a certain amount of time, but please do not throw out your seeds. So now that you've done your layout, you've done your goals, you know what you kind of want to do, you have to go through the catalogs and decide the varieties. So as you can see, I'm going through my peppers. I'm going to do, I think, 6 or 7 new varieties of peppers this year because I just have killed it with all the basic ones, and I still have a freezer full and a dehydrator worth of peppers I have not gone through even after all the canning last year. See, I go big or go home. I don't do small. That is what my goal is this year, is to just grow enough. So anyways, so I'm going through all of my seeds. I'm starting to make notes of which varieties I want to do and how many of those varieties do I want to do. If this looks overwhelming to you, I am sorry. Just go to your local nursery, go to your local Home Depot, anything like that. Pick out some basic seeds and get started. Do not let this overwhelm you whatsoever. I just go big or go home. I cannot help myself. This is probably not the normal amount that people have. If you have this many or if you have more, please leave me a note in the comments. I would love to hear from you and know that I am not alone in this. So some of my favorite places to order online, if you can see right here, is Baker Creek and of course Emma Gardner. He's amazing. Johnny's seeds are okay. I don't really buy much from them because they're more of a commercial grower that I have found. Also Botanical Gardens, Botanical Interest, forgive me, I can't remember, but that was just purchased by Epic Gardening. So those are pretty awesome as well. But those are my mains. Also seedsavers.org, I believe it is. I'll leave links below. And then also I have some bags of seed saving that I've done over the last couple years as I'm learning to do that so I can have more sustainability. So let me know what you plan on doing for your garden this year, if it's your first year or if it's going to be, a subsequent year and you're doing things a little bit differently. But I'd love to know what you guys are doing, what your goals are. And please like this video, subscribe, and share it with others. And don't forget to come back so you can see how I'm going to set up my lights once I clean them off from the kid stuff and how I'm going to start planting my seeds. See you next time.